Hello, welcome to the Laura Documented Podcast. My name is Laura, and this is my dog, Bogey. Bogey, say hi. And I'm so glad you're here with me today. If you're returning from the first episode, thank you so much for watching. If you've just found me, this is a podcast that is all about crafting and making things, mainly making things out of paper and making things out of yarn. Oh, Bogey, no, there's no one actually there. I do. Anyway, and this week also making things out of fabric. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm wearing a me-made dress. It has pockets. So this week I have some finished knitting to share, some finished sewing to share, and some finished scrapbooking to share. So I'll start with the knitting. The very big, exciting news is that I finished. I know, it's beautiful, isn't it? My first sweater. And I am so thrilled and so pleased and so just really in love with this finished object. It fits really wonderfully. I knit the Flax Light by Tin Can Knits out of Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles in the Salty Tails colorway. And I talked more about why I picked that in the last episode, but let me show you how it fits. So you can see it fits really well. The arms are, I had to knit them a little bit longer because I wanted them to go kind of over to the ends of my fingertips, but I'm so thrilled with the sweater. It's just a basic kind of raglan increase sweater, and it has this panel down the arms. I don't know if you can see that. It's a broken rib. Well, the pattern calls for a, I believe a garter stitch panel, and I just changed that into a broken rib. And I really love the way that turned out. The yarn is got these really beautiful specks of copper and purple and blue, and I'm just so pleased. Like much of the country, we're having a heat wave here in California. Oh, I forgot to say, I live in Northern California, near San Francisco, in case you're wondering, which is part of the reason why I knit this in my first sweater in fingering weight yarn, because I think I would wear a heavier weight sweater, and I definitely will knit heavier weight sweaters, but this will definitely get more wear, because especially in the fall, it still can be quite warm, but we have cool evenings. I've even worn this like a little bit this summer, not currently because it's been really, really hot, but a while ago, right after I finished it, there were a few mornings where I got to wear it for like an hour. And even though it's really warm today, I just want any excuse to wear it, because I'm really, really pleased with that. Yeah, the other knitted, I have another knitted finished object and a crocheted finished object that I don't think I shared either of these last week. So I'll share the crochet, well, I'll share, let's see. The crocheting is kind of similar to a project I shared last week. I shared I was doing a welcome blanket in a granny square pattern. And so this finished object is a purse shawl. And this is something I knit for my church, or I crochet for my church. I knit and crochet them for my church. And basically it is Yeah. These are crocheted and knit by myself and other people in the community, and then they're blessed in a church service, just on a regular Sunday. We go up in front of the church, bring the prayer shawls up. They're actually on the altar during the service, and then we say a prayer. The whole community prays for the person that will receive them, and then at some point when there's need for someone to receive some comfort, whether they're in the hospital or they're sick or a loved one of theirs has passed away. We had some go to people who had lost their homes in natural disasters, things like that. They're gifted these prayer shawls, and while we make them, we pray for the person that is going to receive them. So whether or not you believe in that, I think everyone who makes things knows the power of the time that goes into hand making things and the thought that goes into hand making things. And I think that is a really wonderful way to show love, especially to someone when they're going through a crisis or they're going through a difficult time. So this is one that I'm contributing, and we get a lot of donated yarn from people who either older people in the community who used to craft and can't anymore, or when people pass away, if they have family members that don't know what to do with their yarn stashes, we get yarn donated to the ministry, and then use that yarn to make shawls and things for people. So the yarn that I used, you can see is a really old acrylic, Sael Dawn knitting worsted size. It was $1.29 a skein at a drugstore called Long's, which is no longer in business. They went out of business 5 or 6 years ago, and clearly this is from even longer ago than that. So it wasn't, the most soft, wonderful, expensive wool to work with, but it's nice to take something that otherwise might just end up in the garbage or in a thrift store and turn it into a nice shawl that someone will receive comfort from. And basically what I did, I started here in the center with a granny square, and I worked it in this granny square pattern until it was kind of the size I wanted it to be, this direction, and then I just extended from there, following the same stitch repeat. I just expanded out, and then I used the extra yarn to make some tassels on the end. And that is my prayer shawl. So I'll bring that into church, and it'll go to someone who really needs it. My next finished object is also some knitting that I'm not sure that I talked about on the last episode. I don't think I had started it, and to be quite honest, a lot of my knitting time over the past 2 weeks has gone to knitting this, and then re-knitting it, and then re-knitting it, and re-knitting it, and re-knitting it. Probably 5 or 6 times. So the story of this goes that my partner traveled to Europe this summer, and when he came back, he brought me back some craft supplies, which was very sweet of him. And one of the yarns that he brought me, so he basically tried to get something from each country he went to that was made in that country. So like from Italy, he brought me some really beautiful hand marbled papers. From Ireland, he brought me some yarn that was from Irish sheep that was spun there. And then from Spain, he tried to find yarn that was made in Spain, but he was in this little yarn shop in, I think, Santiago, and nobody there spoke any English, and he doesn't really speak Spanish. And anyway, the point is he came back with this little ball of about 30 yards of super bulky yarn, which if you don't knit is not very much yarn to make much of anything with. But it's really beautiful colors. And so it was a bit of a challenge to figure out what I was going to make with this yarn. And I wanted it to be something that I would actually wear and use and would be special. So what I decided was to combine this yarn with another bulky weight yarn. And I've never really knit anything out of bulky weight yarn. So I picked up 2 skeins of Malabrigo Rasta in the Pearl 10 colorway. I don't know if you can see that or if that's too washed out. There we go. And it's this really beautiful, it's like a really, really dark gray that has these kind of lighter bits in it. Anyway, and this is the yarn I combined it. This is the yarn from Spain, which I've looked for it. I looked for it here. I actually looked to see if I could find it online or if I could order some of it, and I couldn't really find any information on it. This is the project that I knit. It is the, let's see, Catbird Hat by Aunt Ninny, which is, it's knit on size, I think I used size 10 needles, which is a bit smaller than they called for. It starts out with this twisted cable ribbing, and then you knit the breast of the hat. It has a pom-pom, some I-cord tassels, and it's pretty dorky. My friend called it very whimsical, is the kind way she put it. I think I need to plan a trip to the snow if this is ever gonna get any use, because a bulky weight wool hat in California, in Northern California, may not get worn too much, but I think it's super cute, and I think it's definitely something I will wear and will be, I actually really like how heavy it is. It's like a really, much heavier than any other hats that I have, because most of them are thinner yarn. But I think it turned out really good. So that's the Catbird hat. And I did a couple of modifications. So I followed other people's comments, because the hat is really oversized. Like if you look at pictures of the patterns, I mean, this fit on me is still big and slouchy and hangs down in the back. But when I first knit it, according to the pattern, it wouldn't even stay on my head. So what I did is I reduced the number of stitches. I'll put up information in my Ravelry notes. But I reduced the number of stitches after the ribbing, and then just knit from there. And then I did less stitches at the very end, like after this last repeat of these bands. So after this top one, I just went directly to the decreases. So those are the modifications I did. All right, and I think that's all my knitting finished projects for this week. So last week I had set the intention of finishing a few scrapbooking projects, and all of that pretty much got shoved to the side, and I made completely different project. So the reason is that it was my partner and I's year anniversary, and I wanted to make him a scrapbook. So I pretty much put all the other projects off and made a scrapbook of all of our traveling and kind of adventures we've done together. So I had a basic layout of an enlarged photo on the left, sorry Bogey, and then a scrapbook layout on the right where I did journaling about what that adventure was. And let's see, it involves some, yeah, sorry bud. It involves some stuff that we did locally, some stuff we did when we traveled together. So I really like how that turned out. And to end it, I have this photo strip I made of us together on our actual anniversary. And then I gave it to him a few days later. Ah, Bogey. Lie down. What else is there to say about this? I used a lot of Ali Edwards products. I used the, I wanted to use up my stash of these big acrylic letters that I have from her subscription kit. So I tried to use up as many of those as possible. She has this subscription kit where it's based around a story theme each month. And so this month's was adventure. And that's where I got the word for the title, our adventure year 1. And then I used some of those other words for the kind of titles of the rest of the pages. The scrapbook is Heidi Swapp storyline theme, I think. And it's a beautiful album. Unfortunately, she only makes the binder albums in 8.5 by 11, and in a larger size, the 12 by 12 are post-bound, unfortunately. Because I really like the 3-ring binder style, but it has this like gold stripe pattern on the inside, and then this beautiful floral on the outside. I just titled it Year 1. And so then the idea is that then maybe for next year, I can again go through and make another similar album of all of our travels together for the next year. The other thing I had talked about last week was my Frank Garcia parcel kit club that I was subscribed to. And so these were monthly subscription kits that would come and would basically be all the supplies needed to make a mini album. And I had one finished, and then I had 2 that were unfinished. And so the finished as in I put them together according to the kit instructions. I had started the gratitude album out of one of them. I only have done one more page in that album. Again, I'm hoping by next time I podcast that will be done. But the other 2 were basically just all the supplies were still in the box. And so I will show you the albums that I made from those 2 kits. And so these albums don't have any pictures in them, they don't have any stories, but all of the supplies have been used and are ready for pictures. So this was the first one I subscribed to. This was from May, and it's this cute album that opens up. Yeah, this isn't staying on very well. It opens up the center, and then it has pages that come out this way, and then pages that open up the other way. And so I basically just followed the instructions. I embellished it based on the kit. So that is the first album. I'm not sure, this is why I stopped subscribing, because I'm not sure what I'm going to use this for. It would be good for a travel album, I think, but the theme doesn't really fit anything, and I like my travel albums to be a bit simpler anyway. This one though, this will definitely get used for, hold on, it's getting washed out. There we go. It has this really cute shaker pocket, which has some seashells in it. And it is all beach themed. And it has like lots of pockets and flip outs. Flip ups. So I'll definitely use this for some beach trip that I do at some point. And this was from July. And so this is the album from June's kit that I turned into a gratitude album that I'm still working on adding photos, but I have about 4 pages done out of 10 because it's a pretty, they're big chipboard pages. As far as other finished scrapbooking projects, I did a 12 by 12 layout, which is from the design team I'm a part of. This was one of my projects that went up on the blog for the Fairy Tale Kit Club. Their latest kit is called Tiki I Love You, and it's based around the Tiki Room in Disneyland in kind of summery colors. So I did, Bogey, come model. Come here. Did a photo of Bogey. Come here, Bogue. Come on up. Come on. Careful. I did a photo of Bogey. Sit. Modeling in his, yeah, good boy, his summery bandana. So, did a layout about how much I love spending summer with Bogey. Huh, good boy. Come on. Okay, you're gonna stay there? And the last scrapbooking finished project I have, I did a Project Life. Let's see if I can show this layout. So this is for week 31. You can see photos on my Instagram, which is at Laura Documented, and my blog is lauradocumented.com. This is the traditional Project Life pocket style, where you kind of do a layout like this for each week, and that's kind of what I've been doing. So I've got pictures of my cats, pictures here you can see me wearing my new sweater, and this is the little swatch I did for the sweater, and this sweater and like information, going to church. This one you can see I've got about our anniversary. I've got a picture of the scrapbook I made. So I've got a currently page. I've got Pandemic, a game I'm playing a lot of. So those are fun because it's little places for the stories, the kind of everyday stories. All right, so those are all the scrapbooking, papery, yarny, knitting things. But I have been doing another craft, which I kind of alluded to in the beginning, which is sewing. So for a long time, I thought that sewing was something that I just didn't like doing. I learned to sew when I was all self-taught when I was in middle/high school. My mom gave me her sewing machine and kind of let me loose to learn how to use it. And it's always had a lot of tension issues. It's never been really taken care of well. That's partly my fault, but also it kind of came to me that way. I think I had it for 6 or 7 years before I ever got it cleaned. And it always would have issues where the thread would get really tangled. It would suck things down kind of into the bobbin, where the bobbin is in the sewing machine. And I just would get so frustrated and just thought that, okay, if sewing is all like this, like, it's not people would talk about how sewing was meditative and it's so relaxing, and I just never felt that way. But recently I had the chance to try out a new sewing machine, and it re-inspired me to try to learn how to sew. And I was fortunately to be in a position to be able to invest in a new machine, and I was able to trade in my old machine and get a really good price on a kind of the lower end of a nicer model. Not a machine that you would get at just like Walmart or Target or somewhere like that, but a machine that came from an actual sewing store. And so I have been sewing almost every day since I got my machine, and now I get it. Now I get what everyone talks about, that it's so rewarding, but also that it's like to sit there in the machine and just to have the fabric go through can be really kind of meditative. And so I get that. And suddenly I'm finishing all these works in progress that I started years ago. Some of them I started when I was in high school and never could seem to force myself to finish. So the first one I'll talk about is a pair of pajama pants. Is a pair of pajama pants that I think has been cut out and waiting for me to sew them for at least 5 years. For a couple Christmases, I was giving pajama pants to all my friends, and so I was turning out like 5 or 6 pairs of pajama pants a year for my family and friends, and I always intended to make myself some. I even went so far as to buy the fabric and cut it out, and then I just would burn out and would not want to do the sewing. So this was a really easy finish. These are, this is a flannel I got years ago at Joann's. It has these little doggies on it. This is a pattern. I don't have the pattern in front of me. In fact, I've sewed it so much I didn't even have to get out the instructions. I just kind of remembered how to put it together. But they're just basic pajama pants. They've got an elastic waist. Some of it I've modified over the years. Like I think the original pattern was drawstring waist, and I just changed it. Yeah, it was really, so I got the machine, I brought it home, and I was able to go to bed that night wearing these pajama pants that I had made myself, which is a pretty cool feeling. So since then I have been sewing pretty much every day. The next project I tackled was a dress that I had intended to make for the Summer of Basics, which is a make-along done by Karen Templar of Fringe Supply Co. And she has an amazing blog all about hand making clothes and knitting and sewing and things like that. And over the summer she does a sew-along / knit-along / make-along, where basically you make 3 basic items that your wardrobe is missing. So last year, my projects were supposed to be my flax light sweater and a pair of socks and a dress from 100 Acts of Sewing, which is a pattern company based out of San Francisco. And this is their dress number 3 pattern. It's a really straightforward, simple pattern. I used some fabric I'd had in my stash for a long time. And again, hated the sewing part and just stopped. So once I got my new sewing machine, I pulled out my project and tried to finish it. There are some things that I really like about this dress. It's a really simple shape. It's very easy to wear. I really struggled with the neckline. It got really stretched out, and it's really, I cut out the size medium, I think, and the neckline is just too big, and it just kind of falls off my shoulders. And I tried to finish it with the bias binding like it says in the pattern, and I just didn't work out for me. I need more practice at it. My bias binding, it doesn't lie flat. So unfortunately this project isn't a really big win for me. It's kind of one of those things that it's a wearable dress, but it feels very handmade, not in a good way. It feels kind of wonky. And I think part of that is some of the work I did on my last sewing machine. Some of it is just using this mystery fabric and not really knowing what I'm doing. And that's fine. It's a learning experience. So I finished that. Probably won't see too much of that dress. But then the other thing that I finished is the Carson dress from Paddle Boat Studios, which is what I'm wearing right now. And this one was one of those projects that I finished, and then I did a little dance around the room because I was so excited about it. It has pockets, and the dress is so comfortable and is such a great shape that I think I might prefer having the bodice piece a little bit longer, kind of to my natural waist. But other than that, it's a really easy shape to wear for me, and it works really well on my body, and I just feel really good in this kind of a dress. So I will be making more of these. I just have to get some fabric. So you'll be seeing more of this dress for sure. So those are all my finished things for this week. I have been crafting a lot, and that's not even the works in progress. So let's talk about those. I'll update you on some progress on some things I've shared last week. And then I have a few acquisitions, and then we'll wrap things up for today. So in terms of knitting works in progress, I think last week I talked about my Franken socks. This is a kit from Harvierland Yarns, where you get these lovely little balls of self-striping yarn that make just the most wonderful pair of crazy striped socks. So I finished this one maybe sometime in February or March, and I've been slowly working on this other one. And where I was last week is where this little progress keeper is. And you can see I've knit, this is another colorway, and I've started the next one, and I'm just about ready to put in a heel. And then I've got just two more little balls of yarn, which should be enough just to finish up the foot and the toe, and then I should have a pair of socks. So other than, yeah, just knit. I mean, this is a lot of knitting. When you think about, like, this would be like multiple pairs of socks worth of knitting. But I love the Franken socks. I want to use up every scrap I can. So it's worth it to put a little extra time to make those really fun socks. Let's see, the next project I shared last week that I've been doing some work on is my welcome blanket. And I did a really bad job of explaining what this is, or how this project got started. Basically, it's a blanket that I'm donating that will be given to a refugee family coming to the US for the first time. And the idea is for them to collect enough blankets that the yardage used in this blanket will equal the length of the border, the proposed border wall. And this is kind of similar to the prayer shawl I shared. This is just a basic granny square. This is crocheting. And where is my progress keeper? Oh. So you can see I've done a couple more rounds since I shared it with you last. I'm about halfway done. I have 6 skeins of yarn. I'm almost done with my 3rd skein of yarn. This is just some Red Heart Super Saver that I got on sale at Michael's. So that hopefully will be done soon. And the last work in progress I have is a new cast on that I talked about last week. This is the Comfort Fade Cardi by Andrea Mowry. And I am knitting a fade out of all locally dyed yarns. And you can watch the last episode if you want to hear more about that. But basically I am just at the beginning. I have not separated for the sleeves yet. I've done my first color fade, so you can see, oh, this is the right side. You can see that. And yeah, that's going well. Just gotta keep, this is the part of the projects that I find the hardest, is when I'm at the beginning, the initial excitement is kind of over, and then I've just gotta keep plugging away at it. So I've lost a little bit of steam on this project since I cast on 2 weeks ago, but I'm really excited to make more progress with this. I'm close to separating for the sleeves, and I think that will give me some more motivation. All right, scrapbooking works in progress. So I think the one that I will share with you this week is a summer mini album I've been working on using this is a planner I got, a personal size planner. It's this kind of fun iridescent, and I'm doing a summer mini album. So I've done a few pages in here. I did a little page about my partner's and I anniversary. This has a little pocket. This was also for the design team. We went out to dinner. I put the menus, and that's what I've got so far. So I'm really enjoying this size. It's a fun to change it up, fun to play around with that different size, and I'm trying to put some special things that I've done in the summer. I tend to not enjoy summer as much as I enjoy some other seasons, so I'm trying to use this as a way to really enjoy the special things about summer that maybe I overlook a little bit. And the other work in progress I've been working on is a travel album. My mom and I took a trip to Point Reyes, and this album is just documenting some of those adventures that we had for the couple days while we were there. It's still got quite a bit of work that it needs. I need to do all the journaling. I've got all the photos in there, all the ephemera, it has some flip outs. I've got it partly embellished, but sorry, I misspelled on it. But it just needs a little bit more journaling, and then I think I can be done with it. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've got going on. As for sewing, I've got another pair of pajama pants with this crazy travel fabric that I loved. Actually, when I went to buy this fabric at Joann's, this was 4 or 5 years ago, I remember taking it up to the cutting counter and thinking like, oh, this is like such cool fabric. It's got all this like awesome travel stuff on it. And the woman cutting it out was like, oh, what are you using this for? I still love this fabric. So hopefully by next time I podcast, I will have another pair of very soft. If you haven't made pajama pants for yourself, you're missing out. Starting to melt a bit under these lights. I've got a studio light set up. So I'll share with you my acquisitions really quickly, and then I will leave it there for this week. I feel like I'm still getting the hang of this. It's weird just blabbing to a camera, but people actually watched it last week, which was so exciting, and so I want to keep doing this, and I think it will get more comfortable the more I podcast, but yeah, I'm still getting used to it. So over the past week, I've got a few things show up for a project that I'm really excited about. So I was watching Inside Number 23, which is another podcast, mostly about knitting, but she also does sewing. And she sewed recently a Halloween quilt. And I immediately saw it and I was like, I want one of those. So I ordered some fabric and it is slowly arriving. But the main fabrics I'm using are a cotton and steel line called Little Monsters. And I won't show you all of them, but let me just try to hold up the bunch so you can see. Yeah. They're all really cute Halloween-y fabrics. There's some really like sort of non-traditional colors like pinks and greens, like lime greens. And I'm so excited. So I have this fabric. I've got another fat quarter bundle coming, which is more traditional, like blacks and oranges. And then I've got, sorry, hold on. This is, these are the Alexander Henry Haunted line. And they are these little fat pumpkins and fat black kitties. And I knew I wanted to use these, and I wanted to use the Little Monsters line. And I just prefer things when they're less matchy-matchy, so even though I'm going to have way too much fabric, maybe enough to make 3 quilts, which I don't think I'm going to do. I wanted to combine different types of fabric, and the only way to get all of the prints was to buy like a larger quantity. And then I was thinking, I bought some fabric for the backing from fabric.com when I was buying some of the other fabrics. Sorry about the rustling. This was called Trick or Treat Stars. And I'm thinking of using this for the backing of the quilts. I'm not sure how well it's gonna go. It's kind of a different orange than the Little Monsters orange. It might not go with the feel of the quilt, but we'll see. But I'm excited to get that started soon. The last acquisition I have is 2 skeins of Jinx yarn, which Jinx yarn, she dyes really wonderful self-striping yarns, and I have been hoping to get it hands on her House Cup colorway, which is this Harry Potter inspired. It's inspired by the house colors, and it always seems to be sold out, but I finally managed to catch it. And I also was able to get her Halloween colorway for this year, which is called Spoopy, which is this black, it's 7 rows black striped with 7 rows of orange, red, black, variegated, 7 rows black, and then 7 rows of orange, green, purple, black, variegated. And when I saw it knit up, she posted a little swatch. It is like absolutely beautiful. Really, really wonderful colorway. I got this in her Glitz sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% Sledolina. And then the House Cup is 75% BFL, 25% nylon. Well, that's all I've got to share with you this week. Feels like a lot. I've been doing a lot of crafting. I thought doing this every week would be too much, so I decided to do it every other week, but that was a lot of crafting. I've been busy. So if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram as Laura Documented, or my blog is lauradocumented.com. I'm most active on Instagram. And thank you so much for joining me for another podcast. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I'm up to, seeing what I'm making, and I hope you will come back in, I do this podcast, I'm trying for bi-weekly, so I will be back in 2 weeks to share what I've been making, and I hope you're having a really lovely day. All right, say bye, Boogie. Bye.